We looked at the first 5 films that are being released in March and gave our perspective on what their percentage will be on Rotten Tomatoes. And in this video, we'll be taking a look at the rest of the films, taking a look at 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And our first one on this list is Pacific Rim Uprising. Although the first Pacific Rim seemed as though it left the series with little room for elaboration, this new film brings Stephen D. Knight's directorial debut. 10 years after the first film, the Jiger program has evolved and new monsters have arisen. The new cast fights to prevent humanity's extinction.
This movie is actually starred in by one of the characters from Star Wars, that John Boyega, or however you say his name.
Finn?
Finn. He stars in this, which doesn't equate to anything because he's not a big star. But I don't think that it's going to equate to the movie being any better than the first one, because the first one was horrible, and so I really expect that this one is going to be also horrible. I don't really see what they're going to do with the concept or the idea that's going to make it alluring to anyone.
The thing is, first and foremost, this film is directed, as I said, by Stephen D. Knight in his directorial debut. And the first film was directed by Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro, he's maybe not a great director, as I talked about in my review of The Shape of Water, but he's a capable director, and he did action films like Blade 2 and the Hellboy series, and they did relatively well. So to see us going from Guillermo del Toro to Stephen D. Knight is a very interesting transition, and honestly, I could see it going either way, because I didn't hate Pacific Rim, but I didn't care about it. I walked into the theater and saw it, and then I left the theater, didn't even really care. It meant nothing to me, right? So, honestly, I don't even approach this with much enthusiasm. I approach it as a popcorn film, a action type film, and that's pretty much it. And I think that might work towards its benefit. I think that the first one got somewhere in the 70% area.
I think it was 71. And by think, I mean I definitely know it was a 71.
I would not be surprised if I went to the theater and I enjoyed this film more than I enjoyed the first one, but I don't think that the Rotten Tomatoes percentage is going to reflect that. I'm thinking that this one will probably be about a 45%.
So this is an action flick, of course, and one of the things is I always think about is Transformers. I hated the series of Transformers. Like, I did not like any of the movies. I did not like any of the
I like
TV
the first one.
Wasn't for me. Did not like it. But I saw the fandom behind it, and it actually was huge. Like, a lot of people are really into it, even though it was bad. And most of the people are into it because of the old school cartoons, so they've just kind of, transferred that love and affection to the movies, even though I believe that they weren't good.
Yeah, although one thing that has to be pointed out is that the percentages didn't reflect that. The percentages for the first Transformers was in the 70s range, but after that they just went downhill.
So what I'm getting at is I think that a lot of people are going to go see this movie. I think that it's going to do well in the box office. Not
I don't think it'll do
spectacular.
well.
I don't think it's going to do spectacular, but I think it'll do well enough. And especially, I think it'll be a profitable movie for
Because the
company
first
that does it.
Pacific Rim wasn't that profitable, and as a matter of fact, it did pretty horrible at the domestic box office. It was only after in China that it was able to start actually gaining some kind of traction.
Right, and I think this one's going to be bigger. I think that this one's going to be overall bigger than the first one. But I do not believe that it's going to be better. I believe that it's probably going to be on par, because I didn't like the first one. So I think it's going to be on par. I mean, it's not going to be very hard to be on par with it. I mean, so I think that we're going to see a similar score. Probably a little bit lower due to the fact that it is the second movie. I think we're going to see a 60%.
And with that, we'll move forth with our 7th film, Isle of Dogs. Directed by Wes Anderson, whose other stop-motion films include The Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Isle of Dogs is set in a dystopian future where dogs have been quarantined on a remote island as a small boy ventures to the island in search of his lost dog, much to the dismay of the authorities who try to find him. With this film, I actually think that we're going to get a high percentage. And one thing that I will bring up, I don't think it's going to do well at the box office, because what people don't seem to understand, or at least what movie production companies don't seem to understand, is stop motion films do not work. And not because they're not good. A lot of them are great. Like, for instance, Kubo. Kubo was awesome. I really enjoyed Kubo. But,
Wallace and Gromit?
yeah, but the thing is, even Kubo was a box office flop. It did not make any money. Even Coraline.
They look weird.
Yeah,
People don't necessarily go out and about to things that look strange and odd.
I think that there's an appreciation, but it's a very niche audience.
Yeah, it's very small. What you're looking at is a very, very small audience. But whenever you were talking about earlier that you think that a couple of these movies are going to benefit from that, I think that this movie is highly going to benefit from that.
Something that I think will help is Wes Anderson, of course, because he has been getting a lot more popular as of late. And for instance, he did The Grand Budapest Hotel. The guy doesn't do a lot of movies that aren't loved by critics. Even The Fantastic Mr. Fox, which was actually a failure at the box office, received glowing reviews. I think that this film is a 90%.
I think that it's going to be pretty high because of the fact that it is in a very small group, a percentile that people are actually going to have heard about this and have high hopes going into it. And yeah, so I think that's going to muddy the water. So you're going to see a higher percentage, even if the movie's not great or you're not liking the movie. So one of the things that I've always attested that I don't like about Rotten Tomatoes is you could think the movie's a 60% and it still is a plus. So you still get that plus rating. And I don't like that. I've always said that Rotten Tomatoes scores always throw me off. I think that the movie itself is only going to be about a 60%. But I think that on Rotten Tomatoes, you're going to see a pretty high score. And I think we're going to come together on this because I think this might be the first one where we have pretty much the exact same. I was going to say something silly like 92%, but that's not even anywhere near wiggle room. So I'm going to lay over the top of yours, and I'm just going to say it's probably going to get about a 90%.
That's cheating. You can't do that. I'm going to change it. It's going to get 100.
100%?
Yeah, I'm going to go to 100. Go big or go home.
All right.
100%. And this one's not going to get 100%. Number 8, Sherlock Gnomes. A sequel to 2011's Romeo and Juliet, a detective Sherlock Gnomes, voiced by Johnny Depp, is brought to help investigate the disappearance of several garden gnomes. The previous film received a 55% approval rating from Rotten Tomatoes. This film I actually saw a trailer for, I think in December. I don't remember what film. Coco. I watched Coco. And I remember as I was watching the trailers, there was that movie with John Cena in it, Ferdinand. And then there was Sherlock Gnomes. And I just remember something I've pointed out to my girlfriend is every single time they make a fart joke at any point in the trailer, I die a little inside. I hate
Fart
it.
jokes are popular.
I hate it
Kids
so
love
much.
fart jokes, though.
I think they're
That's what it is. That's society right now. Is we're just one big.
But
fart
that's
joke.
not even right now. That's been for a long, long time. That's been for like 20, 30 years of just trailers doing that. Like even I remember I rewatched Shrek, and I remember those holding those into some high regard. And I'm like, oh, you make fart jokes too, Shrek. A lot of them, in fact. Yeah, I just I have no enthusiasm about this film at all.
I can't imagine how far Johnny Depp has fallen to start doing things like this.
I
He
don't
hasn't
know.
had a
Did you
good
see
movie.
Mordecai?
He hasn't had a good movie in forever.
He had Black Mass. That was actually a pretty good movie.
didn't-
Nobody saw it.
Yeah, I was
But
gonna say I didn't even watch that. Johnny Depp has fallen so far from grace that I can't remember the last good movie. Pirates of the Caribbean I like just because it's like flighty. Like I don't even think it's good movies. I just think that they're fun to watch. So I'm going to be honest with you. This movie is going to be horrible, and this movie is probably going to get in the low 20s whenever it's all said and done. I would say about 21%.
I'm gonna say 8%.
8%.
Just because I just see it and I get mad and I want to punch babies. So
Yeah, well, there's your political career right
there's
out the window.
my career's gone.
No
And
President McConaughey for you.
It's because Sherlock Gnomes. That ruined everything. All my aspirations for a political thing. Trump grabs people
He does grab people.
I
by
can
the
punch
vagina.
babies. I think I can get allowed. I think I can be allowed.
It's probably less frowned upon.
Okay, so Sherlock Gnomes, I'm gonna say 8%. For number 9, and this is a film I can't really wrap my head around how it exists either, which shows that we're really scraping from the bottom of the barrel here. But it's number 9 is God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness. Acting as the third film in the God's Not Dead franchise, A Light in Darkness, while not much is known about the plot of this film, we do know that the second God's Not Dead received a 9% from Rotten Tomatoes, whereas the first film in the Christian themed series received a 15%. So these are high quality films. These are blockbusters by all definition of the phrase. Gonna be nominated for Oscars, no doubt about it. And I'm gonna say we're gonna outdo ourselves with a 0%.
Wow. I think it's at least going to get like a 10%. Only because of the fact that you're going to have those right wing religious nuts who are just going to say that because God's name is in the title, that we should probably play it in school. Like, that is going to be the end all be all. That is how we are going to stop people with guns, is that we play this movie in there and we bring it into the schools. And then once they see those religious posters, nobody will ever shoot anybody again. I believe that you'll have those people. So it's going to at least get a 10% from those.
Which is good because that gives us some wiggle room here. Because all I want to get is like I can see it going 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%. I don't see it going over 5. So I can honestly see it going like 5% and us just being at a tie. So that's what you're gonna say is 10%?
10%, and I think it's going to just kind of strain on this because if you think about it, and I'm not going to say any names, but we know individuals who have liked these movies or liked movies similar to these movies. And with that, you have the idea that they're going to like it. They're probably not going to get on the internet and say anything about it because that's just, it's an older generation. But you are going to have people who like it, and you're probably going to get about a 10%. And that's the way I see it. No higher than 15, but I think 10 is where you're probably going to be.
All right. Well, that's fair. Okay, and number 10, and this is the last one we're doing. So number 10 is Ready Player One. And I thought this one would be a good one to cap it off with. Ready Player One is based on the 2011 novel of the same name and is set in a near future dystopian Earth where an interconnected virtual space called the Oasis reigns supreme. When the founder dies, he reveals a hidden treasure hidden amongst puzzles that, upon uncovering, will mean ownership of the large-scale virtual space. This film's about a race between a large group of people trying to find it. It's also based on a book, as I said, and I have not had a chance to read that book, but I know a lot of people hold it in high regard. I know there was some criticisms people had about how the trailer perhaps wasn't like the books.
With this, I think I'm really gonna like this movie.
I have high hopes. At first, whenever I saw the trailers for it, my immediate thought was, okay, the concept is generic, but I'm excited for it because I just saw Freddy Krueger, and then there's Chucky, and that's pretty cool. And so, but as I've started to see more trailers about it, I think that this is just going to be a fun film. Very, very enjoyable, a blast from the past in terms of nostalgia, and I think it'll work.
It looks interesting because of the way that I first thought about it was you were telling me that characters such as like Freddy and blah 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 were in here and all these old school nostalgic characters, and I was like, I don't know, it kind of sounds kind of wishy-washy and I'm not sure that I'm gonna like it. Then I watched the trailers and that's not what it's about at all. Like it has those characters in it, but it actually has a good premise where the owner of this virtual reality has put in secrets so that way people couldn't monetize it and take over as like the High Legion, and these people actually are still looking to do so, so they're fighting these quote unquote normal people who are moving through the same system trying to get the same little artifacts so that way they can stop these people from doing it. So I think that the aspect of it is a lot better than what I had imagined it being. And whenever I watched the trailer for it, I was like, okay, I could probably get behind this movie. And I also went to Goodreads and actually hit the want to read on the book because I actually thought that I would really like this movie.
One thing I'm curious about with the book is I wonder if it has the cameos, or not cameos, but the little Easter eggs in it. I assume it does, but I'm like, how does it get away with the copyright and all that stuff with planting those things in, unless it's just extremely vague with it. And so maybe that's a reason to check out the book, because I'm curious about it. Uh, One thing that we are also not taking into account, and whenever I did watch the trailers, I did see that it had more to offer than just what I thought, which was just like a bunch of Easter eggs put into it. A lot of people pointed out it kind of looks like Tron, it kind of looks like Spy Kids 3D, and I think that it'll work out, but something we're not taking into account is that Steven Spielberg as well. Steven Spielberg is very, very capable as a director, and he's not going to phone it in, or at least he usually doesn't phone it in. Whether or not he succeeds is neither here nor there. But he has a lot of good films under his plate. Like, if this could be something of the caliber of some of his best, like perhaps maybe Jurassic Park, something of that level.
I think it's going to be a really highly acclaimed movie, only because I also know that whenever I was talking about Goodreads and I was talking about having liked the book on there, I remember it was over a 4 out of 5. So it was, I think it was almost a 95% on Goodreads. And I know that a lot of the times the books are different than the movies,
Yeah.
but I really have high hopes for it because, like you said, it is Steven Spielberg. The trailer looked really well done. And I believe that it's going to be a pretty good adaptation of the book. So, with that said, I think that it's going to get in the high 80s. I think that we're going to see probably about an 86%.
I think that I'm going to enjoy this film. I'm going to go to the theater and I'm going to have had a good time. And I'm not going to have that many problems with it. I don't think that I'm going to walk away thinking it was a great film, but I'm going to enjoy myself. Whereas I think that the critics are going to have the same basic sentiment. Regardless of how the film's quality is, I expect that a lot of people are going to say that it has way too many cameos, has way too many focus on certain characters, and that it takes away from the main plot. Whether that actually happens or not is neither here nor there. I just have a feeling that's going to be a criticism that's pretty much inevitable. And with that, I think we're going to see a 74% on this film. I think it's going to have a 74%.
Wrong. So that concludes all 10 of our movies. Why don't you guys go ahead and tell us what you think the percentages are going to be down in the comments down below. And if you like these two videos, like, subscribe, and share, and visit us on mishmashers.com for more. Thank you.